Ladies and gentlemen, it's Brock Bowen here, back with another Frank conversation. So we're doing regular live question and answer format webinars. We want to bring you the topics that a lot of people are afraid to touch on, the things that people don't often talk about, and give you a frank perspective on it. Today's topic is cancer, beyond the fear. It's a huge thing in the public space. When someone has cancer, there's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of interesting factors. And I have a special guest on today who really knows a lot about this topic. So I thought I'd bring him on and share a little bit more about what he's up to, some different insights and perspectives, and of course, answer any questions you guys might have. So thanks everyone here on the live webinar. Good to have you guys watching the replay. And ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to our special guest today for Frank, Beyond the Fear of Cancer, Mr. Jason Reynolds from the Quantum Movement.
How are you, Brock?
Good to see you, my brother.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm well. So yeah, we want to let's just get straight into it. We want to talk about cancer, just to get into this. It's a huge thing. Probably the first thing we want to look at is, let's explore defining cancer. It's probably a fun one just to start, when we're talking about cancer or, perhaps similar things. We might even go into the broad perspective of cancer, leukemia, things to do with the lymph.
Yeah, okay. So explaining cancer, I don't know if there's really a point to give it a definition, because I think by giving it a definition, you buy into the condition. One thing I'll say up front, and I suppose it's our legal system requires, is that I'm not a registered doctor. I mean, if you need medical advice, the recommendation is that you go and see a practitioner that you trust and that is able to provide that information for you. And saying that, cancer itself, I mean, the word itself is registered, it's trademarked, it's not allowed to be used in certain ways. Like the words cancer cure are words that are actually restricted from use in a lot of formats and a lot of forums. What I would say as far as a definition of cancer, I think it's different in every single person. We hear all the time of this latest strain, this new type, or this rare account of cancer or a condition that someone's experiencing or going through in their own life. It's not by needing to do much research that we can find a whole lot of information, cures, and things that are available for all of us. I mean, that's for anyone who's willing to look beyond the standard approach to one of the great doctors that are out there and to look into something that may serve them more. They don't have to look too far. I mean, you get on social media, there's a new condition each day, and many of them have been around for hundreds and maybe even thousands of years. The thing is, Western medicine's really only been around a little over 120, 130 years. So we're working with something that's quite new as far as science is concerned. But the cancer, to me, like the fear comes. It's some people even call it the big C. It's too afraid to actually use the word. To me, it's no different to any other condition that's deteriorated in a much greater length than we've allowed ourselves to ignore conditions, awarenesses within our body to manifest something that brings up an ability to stop and recognize who we are. I mean, I find one of the interesting things with cancer is that, to me, I believe it's a lack of love and a lack of understanding for yourself. So, I mean, a pure ignorance for our own self. And what I mean by that is that there's a voice and an essence that's so powerful within us that it's wanting to get out, it's wanting to be expressed, and it's the nature of why we're here in the first place. If we deny that, we're in a constant state of resistance. And if you can imagine a body in resistance for a long period of time, any physical form, when there's resistance pushing against it again and again and again, it deteriorates, it breaks down. Cancer happens to be a condition. It's not one condition. There's many different forms of it. There's lymphomas, there's leukemias, there's different forms and different areas where cancer can be present within a body. To me, I believe it's a lot deeper. And what I was saying before, it comes back a lot to love. And I believe everything comes back to the relationship that you have with yourself. And I would look at it in this particular way, is we're all getting awarenesses, we're all getting insights. I don't believe intuition is something that's a skill that people have developed or something that they learn. Intuition is something that's inherent within all of us. We all have a voice in our head. It depends upon where we direct our attention. It will depend upon what type of intuition we're receiving. The skill is not intuition. The skill is being able to trust that information and act upon it. And I believe this is a very big doorway that's left open for where things like cancer, autoimmune diseases, and a whole range of other conditions that we experience to come and be welcomed into our own life. You see, when we have this voice inside of us, and at times we get a little bit of a nudge, an awareness of a direction we may need to take. And my suggestion is that if we ignore that, that ignorance within us manifests within our body. And it continues to keep manifesting as we suppress it, until eventually that manifestation becomes more significant. And at this stage, the pressure and the awareness that we're getting is becoming more prolific in our life that we need to take action or embrace something in a different way to what we currently are. It might be the way that the job that we're doing, and mainly the reason why we're doing it. It may be a relationship that we're in, that we're not prepared to leave because we're concerned for the other person rather than our own health. It may be anything to do with business, life, whatever it may be, but when this continues to manifest and we continue to suppress it, our body has to go into a state where it needs to get your attention, trying to get your attention in a very definitive way. Now, what's interesting is that when people get a significant condition, especially a cancer, what happens is they start to allow in love. They start to receive love. They have many people in their family directing compassion and attention and being there at every particular moment in their life. And for those of you out there that, experience a level of love in your life, you might think that's not such a big thing, but you might not have cancer as well. But what I'm suggesting is that there's a deep level of hate that exists within each of us that if it's allowed to manifest, we have these types of conditions. And that's why a lot of people, when they have cancer, they have an opportunity or a choice at that moment. They have a choice to embrace themselves and move forward and understand it. And you hear a lot about people when they have cancer, and even some people going to the extent that they are so grateful for the experience of cancer, so grateful for having it. I don't mean grateful in such a way of being positive, but grateful for the recognition that's created in their life that they can now reflect, take the time away from work, from obligation, from the life that they've created to actually stop and take stock of what they've created, what's not working for them, what's important to them, to finally make that choice to no longer push against what they love to do, but to find something to make clear decisions. And it's in that moment of cancer where people get supported. Everyone's around them is doing whatever they possibly can for them in that moment. Interestingly, once the cancer leaves, so do most of the people in their attention. But that's up to that individual if they can maintain that awareness within themselves. And we see people that, have cancer, that come out of it, that have this awareness and live a life as if they never had it in the first place. We have other people who have a cancer and they continue to thrive on the attention that's there and they don't want to let go of that, and that serves a purpose for them. And for them to experience love in that way, if it's been so void in their life up until now, that's a blessing for them. We happen to wrap that up in cancer. But there's so many ways in which this manifests within us. Cancer happens to be the most identifiable one, probably the most marketable one, the one that's spoken about the most. And I don't mean to deny the fact that the pain that people have gone through their loss of loved ones and family members that have been taken by cancer. But what I hope to do with sharing this is that there's a different way and there's a simpler way where people don't need to go through that. It's always shocked me that the level of resistance people have to be able to trust themselves, to go outside of themselves, to really get past these types of conditions of suffering that we bring upon ourselves.
Let's just stop there for a second and consider, someone that's literally going through. We're going to have multiple people, I'm sure, watching this recording who, a loved one or a family member or a friend or themselves, have literally had that news. That news went, that feeling where, the doctors basically come through and said, you have cancer. It's almost as if they're pointing the stick, which is what the indigenous people do. And they usually give them 6 months, 2 years, or 5 years to live. You know, people are excited when they outdo that, but often it seems that people live for 6 months, 2 years, or 5 years, according to what the doctor gives them as their authority. And I want to talk that one through, because that's huge for a lot of people. That, you know, even from when we're a kid, the thing we do is as soon as we get sick, we get taken to the doctor. We don't actually check in and look after our own health. We don't be conscious about that. So I really want to, you know, just direct the conversation there for a second, just so it's present to what people might be experiencing who are, you know, interested in this conversation.
Okay. So what's the question that you...
Specifically, someone who's having an experience right now, they've just been told they've got cancer, or one of their friends or family members. You know, just give them, they've literally just been told, I've got 6 months to live, 5 years to live. I know you've worked with people before. I don't know if you speak publicly about that or how that works, but ultimately, you know, if someone's in that scenario right now, say, you know, let's just say it was my mum.
Yeah.
What will we talk about? Just make it personal.
Well, we have worked with a lot of people who have cancer, and at this state, I can be very blessed in saying that every single person we've worked with that type of condition and any other condition have got past it. And not have only got past it, have lived life beyond that, where a number of them that have actually gone through and got the test don't have the biological markers or don't show any signs of it ever being in their body. And from a medical point of view, this is something that's unheard of.
That's impossible according to the medical formulation.
Well, that's what we were told, and that's what we were told quite directly after a particular client who was 28 kilos and 5'11" and were unable to move. You know, within a short period of time. I mean, 6 months. But what I'm sharing doesn't cure cancer. What it gives people is a deep relationship with themselves, where every answer becomes available. And if cancer happens to be the highest priority thing that you need to address at that particular time, I would suggest that's where you'd be focusing your attention. But if it's about building a business, you'd be focusing your attention elsewhere. The thing is with cancer and these types of conditions, the fear that goes around it causes people to apply themselves in a very deep way. But when someone's giving themselves that time, whether it's this particular learning or any other learning, the key is getting back to themselves. And, you know, these words are used quite, you know, freely. You know, getting back to yourselves, loving yourself, engaging in self-love, being grateful. You know, they're all great and powerful words. But the real key is going beyond the conversation, and how do you replicate that in your life, and how do you do it in a way that is designed for you? How do you love yourself in the way that you need to be loved, that you require love, that love integrates with you? But first of all, even understanding what love is. Not the idea that might be created in a book or what we've come to know through our own experiences in life, but understanding what love is for you. I mean, for me, ultimately, love is an unconditional attention upon an item. And that item might be a person, that might be an animal, that might be upon yourself. But it's an unconditional attention. There's nothing else that becomes of a greater priority in that moment of love. You become engaged in it, you become engulfed in it. And it's understanding not only how to achieve that, but how to maintain that consistently. And at times, even if we were to fall out of it, it's knowing how to get back there. Because if we're able to sustain that, and I really believe cancers and all these other conditions are only there as a reminder to get back to how to love yourself. So to answer your question, the first thing that when it comes to cancer, if people don't have a specific process, it's getting back to a point of what you really love to do, doing what you love and loving what you do. But it's, you know, that goes to that particular point, not what you think you love, not what other people would look and think that you would love, but what you actually love and what you want to do boldly to serve and support you.
I've definitely heard examples of that before, where people turn their life around. And I mean, I've even seen it with one guy I knew up in Cairns. He had a business that he hated. He needed to leave his relationship. When he left that business, his health transformed in about 2 weeks. You know, horrible health, looked like he was going to, you know, have 3 to 5 years left. As soon as he left that, he was thriving. He always wanted to sail the world. He took action and did it. Then he came back and thought, you know what? I have all this extra money. I need to start a business. And now he's doing really bad. And it's interesting, you know, just talking about, you know, the responsibilities and obligations of life. I don't think people, people often hear that, there's a lot of spiritual teachers running around telling people to do what they love. And I think a lot of the personal development message gets a bit confusing for people. I've even seen some of the spiritual teachers before that have had cancer. And they're talking about gratitude and love and all these different principles. But, the thing that seems is they're trying to give it out to everyone else, but not themselves. So I want to just touch on that for a second.
Yeah, look, I don't believe there's any one cure or any one answer to cancer. Like that we could say to someone that here's a process, this is what you need to do, and this is what you'll go through. And I even believe some of the amazing, things like that. There's talk about there about beetroot fasting. There's maintaining an alkaline pH within the body. I would suggest those things work to an extent with certain people, but they don't work for every single person. Because what's been denied in that is your own truth. We're still bringing something to us in order to change ourselves. Well, that can only occur deep within. So look, there's a whole range of from jackfruit to, the list could go on as far as the options that are available to people. But curing cancer is not just the answer. It's what you then do with your life and be able to maintain that consistently beyond that point. And to me, it's how do you give yourself love unconditionally in every moment? How do you know how to move forward in a way that serves you beyond suffering? We're so conditioned that we need to suffer in order to move forward. We need to go through pain in order to grow. This is just simply not true. But we will continue to do that consistently until we understand why we're doing it and how we can then go beyond that.
But what if we don't know?
Sorry?
What if we don't know? What if we're just in this dream of, life's wonderful, I've got the success, all the different things. And it seems to people that's when they do end up with cancer, or they do end up with the heart attack, or they do end up with the massive car accident. What are some of these things that people can start to pay attention to just to start so that they don't have to go the full journey into stage 5 cancer?
I think one of the most important things is writing. It's one of the things that people talk about meditation and yoga and a whole range of different practices and mindfulness that they're not going to be detrimental, but it's important not to go into those things expecting that it's going to be a cure or that you're going to get an outcome. The nature of that is that you're doing it for a choice. You're giving to yourself. You're not doing it to get a particular outcome. And to me, one of the greatest things that we can do is writing. It's in writing we become so present to ourselves. We become present to the actual thoughts and sometimes the toxicity that's going on within us. I don't mean writing as in a creative story about the beauty of life. I mean, whether it's the beauty of life, whether it's the darkness of life, but whatever it is that's permeating within you at the moment, allow it to be released. Allow yourself to bring to your own state an awareness, a truth, a space within you. So many of us have got locked up in our heads, all of our thoughts, all of our reactions, other people's energies that continue to drive us forward rather than the time and space for our own silence to grow and to expand and to have a voice that we can project.
Fantastic. So when you say writing, are you referring to journaling, that sort of form where you're, in the morning, in the evening you write, or is there a particular practice that people can start with now just so they get some tangibility?
Yeah, I think, look, first of all is automatic writing. Automatic writing is, it's a simple process and it's not coming from a point of trying to get it right or wrong. It's just getting a pen and paper and the thoughts, the first thing coming to mind, whether it makes grammatical sense, whether it's any sort of logical structure to what you're writing. The first part, like when we start to learn to walk, we're going to trip over a few times, just writing. Just simply getting a pen, getting paper and sitting there and giving yourself 15 minutes a day to sit there and just write, to become present to your thoughts that are there at the moment, because it's one of the greatest ways to bring awareness to what is actually going on inside of you. And then at that particular point, you can make a choice if you want to do something about that, especially when it continues to keep presenting. If you want to go deeper within yourself to really get to a point where you not only listen, but you can start to discern the specific voice that is yours. You can remove yourself and raise your vibrational frequency above the collective consciousness that exists around you and allow your own frequency to evolve beyond that. But writing itself, and from a very connected state, the more connected we are, and then I'd like to use the word even integrated, that we are at a physical and energetic level.
So when you say connected and integrated, what do you mean specifically?
Well, I would suggest that we all have a unique frequency signature. And I would suggest, okay, when it comes to cancer, it's that our physical body is not resonating with that inherent and native frequency signature that is us, so that is our soul, that is our essence of life. And I would suggest that when we can allow the body and the physical body that takes on all these other energies, all these beliefs, all these conditions of life, the bruising, the battering, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, however you may want to perceive it at this particular point. The body stores that. It doesn't store energetically. It is energy that's storing in a physical sense, but our energetic state is perfect. We never need to work on that. It's about clearing the physical state so that it can start to resonate uninterrupted with the nature of what we are.
Can we just touch on that again, your energetic state and your physical state? So what's the difference? Is energetic state linked to your soul, your spirit? What are you referring to there?
Well, I suppose it's up to each individual's determination. Like the energetic state within you may be the soul, it may be spirit, it may be the source, God within, whatever people want to identify that is, but it's the energetic frequency state that determines our life and our being.
Sure.
The physical state is the matter, the physical state which we can touch. I mean, the Egyptians used to say that the life was an integration between spirit and matter. Without spirit, matter is motionless. And matter without spirit, so spirit without matter is formless.
Yeah.
And so each other allows us to have an experience in this particular lifetime.
I just even, as you said that too, I think about cancer patients. And when you see their faces, they get this gray or blue color. It's almost as if they become lifeless and it's like the blood's drained out of them. And, when you said disconnected or connected, that's what I see too. When people are thriving and they're happy and then they're in the flow, they tend to have that, that healthy glow, like a new mother or, when new life is being birthed through, or there's a sense or a purpose or different things. And, I'm curious what that is. Is that what you're referring to in terms of the body?
Absolutely. I think our body's giving us indications all the time of where we're at. I mean, something as simple as dry skin or a rash or some type of condition that we're experiencing, maybe even a fungus somewhere on the body or a foot or, a redness that starts coming to our face and parts of our body. It's trying to communicate with us. I mean, we've got the opportunity to respond to that if we understood and knew how to communicate with ourselves. And I mean consistently, not occasionally through assumption, but specifically at our own frequency. The ability to be able to do that. I mean, for some people, there's books out there that go at a very generic level that if you have this type of condition or your arm hurts or you've got a problem with your leg, that this is what's occurring in your body. And that, like a cancer cure that exists, is going to help some people. But it's not necessarily going to help all. So what we're looking at is going to a point where we can discern what serves ourselves. And yeah, definitely. The body sores, calluses that come through states of cancer and that lifeless grey that becomes people at the same time. I mean, you see the body, it starts to deteriorate, gets weak, it becomes thin. Muscle starts to strip because there's no more purpose for it. We've made a decision that we no longer want to be here, or we're not prepared to give ourselves love in this moment. That's ultimately our life source. It's our energy.
I've done it years ago. I was just tuned in at one point and I asked someone, and I'm going to ask that question you're looking down to now, but I literally asked someone, what are you dying to get out of? And I often see that where, as intense as that sounds, it almost seems that people are killing their physical body to exit, like you talked about, a physical, a relationship that's not working, or whatever it happens to be. There's so many interesting things, but I want to touch on this question from Michelle Russo now. You ready for it?
Yeah.
How do you get people past the trusting of doctors and do everything they say to trust in themselves with quote unquote alternative information? And there's a little bit more. I understand that we all possess the power to heal ourselves, but of course, we've never been taught how. A lot of us, especially in my age group, was brought up with the knowledge, if you get sick, you go to the doctor. He gives you a pill and then you're okay. Lol. Not right, of course. Going to the source of your illness is the key. Generally, doctors aren't taught that.
Generally, I mean, you can't change anyone else. You never will. And to buy into the idea that you're going to change anyone else is going to be the type of thing that brings about these types of conditions, cancers, these problems, and let's say diseases in life. When you start to see people not doing that, when you start to see them not buying into what you believe, I would suggest because you're not being an example of it yourself. You know, there's a part of it that you don't believe in. You're identifying what people are not experiencing in their own life because you're not involved in your own. And for some of us, that can be confronting because we believe that we're there to help and assist. No, I just want to share this information with them. It'll really help them. You know, people have got their own journey, and it takes a lot because it's what we've been taught to do, to be there for everyone else, to support others. And if we're a good person, that's what we need to do. But the greatest way we can support people is by supporting ourselves and having our own pure expression that gives other people the permission and the right to do the same thing, because that's when these diseases no longer exist. When you start to live in a state of truth for yourself. When we're sitting there and we're saying, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be trying, try this thing, have that thing. We're never actually asking questions. What would this person like? How can I support you? Which way do you want to go? Because I could say this to you, that within the spiritual field, there's this idea that Western medicine is bad. I mean, this is a condition and a belief that many of us need to get over if you have this capacity. I myself, when I had a child 5 or 6 years ago, my intention was to go down a very natural and, organic type of way to bring a child into this planet. But I went, that was my thoughts and that was my desire. But when I chose to tap in, I got present to some information that was not what I was expecting. And that was about having a child in a hospital and a few other things along the way that I wasn't expecting, like having a scan, which wasn't something I believed we needed to do. But what it caused me to do and to bring up was to release all the beliefs and all the energy that I had invested into identifying Western medicine as a bad thing. Now, I'm not saying it's a good thing. And I don't know the last time I've had a pill. I might have been when I was, I don't know, my mum never brought me up and I've never had them. I mean, occasionally I think for earaches when I was a kid. But the key is to not buying into what is a better way. It's being able to honor another person's individual choice in the way that they want to move forward. Because whilst you're in there interrupting their choice, they will stick further to it because you're taking up the space of their expression. And it's really important how you can more so express yourself. If you want to really help people, don't tell them what to do. Ask them questions. And this goes back to in sharing what people can do going forward from here. You know, we talked about writing before. I mean, writing is a very powerful thing, but it's like everything. You need to maintain it. You need to go past the point where it becomes painful, where you start to become aware and understanding of it. And my suggestion is write down a question that's on your mind. And it might be, how do I receive love? It might be, how do I make it to the end of the week? It might be, where do I find the person of my dreams? Write it down in full and then ask the question and expect the response to be true and then act upon it. Because that's the most definitive way that you can move forward in life unless you have a higher, more highly integrated capacity within you. Because the other thing that we're doing is reacting to what's already going on. At least when you're writing something down and asking a question, you're making a choice. You're creating a choice. You're becoming aware of a truth that exists within you. The level of that truth will depend upon your ability to be able to integrate your physical and energetic states.
Something I want to touch on there too, just a few comments back, you just said tap in. And, for some people watching, they might just tune in, they might get that straight away. But I want to give people clarity around that one too. When people tap in, I can relate too. Christy had a 41-hour labor and it was intense. And I was doing some of that tapping in. And, I've been doing that sort of stuff for a while. But for someone that's listening, they might be right in the midst of cancer. They might be right in the midst of some shit that's going on in their life right now. And, it's really challenging them or tweaking them, as I like to say. And it's a struggle right now. And they don't feel really tapped or tuned in. What does that mean to them?
what is happening to them.
What does it mean to them? You know, if they want to tap in, but they're completely in, you know, almost like a deer in headlights. They're absolutely frozen, can't move because they're freaking out. They're in the fear of cancer, the fear of losing the job, whatever it's happening, losing the relationship.
Yeah. They're in pain. The first choice is to understand the pain, to get beyond it, because pain continues to exist when we don't understand what's creating it, and we don't understand how we are creating it. So the first thing to do is, what I would say is, get into a quiet state. I mean, in a distraction-free zone. And maybe go into nature or somewhere where you feel at ease with the environment. Get a pen and paper and make the time for you, and start just to write down, allow that information to come. Start to ask yourself questions. And I mean, not just ask yourself the question in your head. The problem is that when we have a question in our mind, it takes up the space of the answer. It's not until we release the question do we create space for the answer to become present. How often people have, you know, finally said out loud, oh, I wish I knew this, and they suddenly go, oh, that's what I need to do. Or where did I leave my keys? Oh, that's where it is. It's halfway through. As soon as the question's released, we then become prepared and present to the answer. So it's making a choice to do things differently to what you have been, if this is the life that's been created for you having cancer. Love, to me, if I go back to that, that's what it's all about. There's only ever one cause that exists in life, whether it's business, whether it's cancer, whether it's leukemia, migraines, headaches of any particular sort. It's to do to the degree of integration that you have between your physical and energetic states, or in a more common way, it's the relationship you have with yourself.
I was going to touch on that too, because, you know, you see bumper stickers around in the spiritual circles and they say, choose love, not fear. You know, I've got friends all around the world and they all talk about love. But, you know, it's one thing to say this, but then to actually receive it for yourself. I think that's probably the biggest difference I've seen with the work that you share with people, is you give people a tangible way to do that. Not just to read it out of a book, not just to say it in affirmations each day, which I don't believe they consistently work. It's nice to talk positively to yourself. It's nice to do those sort of things, but, you know, if they worked, we'd all be billionaires. So I want to just touch on that too, you know, just to give people an insight. What's unique about what you're sharing with people that you can have someone, you know, basically stage 5 cancer, 6 months later, they've completely turned their life around. And, you know, when I asked you about that privately the other day, I hope it's okay to say here, and I said, well, if I was to bring you a group of people and they go through exactly what you shared with them, can we 100% say that it's going to work? And you said, if they do everything of what I share, of course. There wasn't this 99%, I think it's going to work. It was just, yes. And, you know, when you talk about connection and different things, I believe that's what the difference is in people, where they're so connected to who they truly are. The integration and connection is, this is who they are. There's nothing else. There's no separation. And a lot of teachings talk about it, but their ability to deliver on what they speak about, in my opinion, is limited. And what I've seen from what you do and what I've experienced is different. I just want to see if there's a way that you can articulate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, look, it's a big question, because what this goes back to is really confronting people that they are the answer. Like you said earlier, that, you know, when people were children in previous generations, they got sick, they handed that problem to someone else. They were in the palms of someone else's decision and choice. You know, there's plenty of, you know, impactful spiritual teachings out there, and I've been through a couple of them myself. And they're great, but they're generally about someone's experience and what they've had, and a further development of that. There's great philosophies out there, and you know, cultural ideas on ways to live. But, you know, beyond all of that is yourself. And it's that ability to be able to uniquely connect in with you, to be able to give voice to that silence in every moment. You know, in every part of life, not just when we get to a state where we've got cancer. My suggestion is, as far as, you know, a solution to cancer, is don't put yourself in a position to get there in the first place. And if there's one thing I could share with people is, why do you wait? And what are you waiting for before you allow yourself to live and love yourself? But what would have to happen in order for you to give yourself the time to say, I want to experience this. Because for me, what's happened over my time, more and more people are coming to me now. I'm starting to attract more people that are not in a challenge state. Because it's a type of thing that we do, but we do still work with a hell of a lot of people that are in pain, because it's the majority of life. And it still surprises me some of the ways in which people live. When I see people walking down the street with, a bad back, a bad arm, or some of those older people, and they're bending over, it might be suggested that it's a condition. But at what point do we allow ourselves to recognize, I don't accept this. I deserve more within myself, and I want to find out how to do this. At what point do I allow myself to imagine, people come to me and say, well, how do I know what you're going to do is going to work? Because it's quite different, it's quite unique. And the irony is, if you knew what I could teach you, you wouldn't need to know, because you could just tap in and definitively know that. I don't mean as just a general idea. I mean as an absolute. We've all got this capacity. There's no need for any healer, except for when we don't want to take responsibility for ourselves. There's no need for a mentor, except for when we don't want to take responsibility for ourselves. But the nature of life is that we've not been given that. We've not been shown how to do that. And it's getting past the idea of the one way that you think is the way forward, the solution, the idea. It's getting to a point when you integrate with yourself. It's like that moment when you first have an idea. Every possible door is open. And when you hold on to that idea for a longer period of time, doors start to close. It's not the right season. It's not the right time. We've got to wait till this happens. This person said it didn't work. And suddenly we're left with this little doorway we've got to walk out because we have to. We don't have any other choice. And you hear people saying this. Well, yeah, you can stop exactly what you're doing and start again and identify what the thing is that you need to take forward in your life. And then from that point, as you create a new moment and a new awareness, you have an unlimited capacity on how to express that. The issue is at that particular point where we drop off, where we start to buy into the unconscious reality of what we believe is our truth, which is actually fear, which is actually unconscious, which is actually a different frequency that does not belong to us. And more often, for most of us, it's everyone else's energy. This is not putting people into a bad bucket. This is just suggesting the nature of your life here is to experience it. And part of that experience, and the key part of that experience, is experiencing you. What you have within you is unique. Cancer and all of these diseases are just a last gasp. Do you want to be here? Do you want to experience yourself in such a way that you can grow and develop and live your life? Or is this it? And for some people, that may be the case. But the real healing can only come. We can find something that satisfies us temporarily and go, hey, I'll get over that. Take these things, this fasting solution, whatever it may be. It's going to work for a period of time until the cause of that is released. And the cause of that is still our relationship with ourselves. If you can understand this, is that cancer does not exist in a state of love. And that the great gift that cancer presents is that opportunity to recognize I've been existing this up until this time without it. Geez, imagine my life if I did. What could I create? What would I be? Well, at least now I'm on a pathway to do that.
I love it. We've come to, we're going to do it a little bit less time. I think it's about enough time today. We've covered all the questions. So what are the final things you want to cover before I wrap it up?
Look, for me, I see regularly each and every day people that have conditions that they come to in our life, diseases, problems. And I see how quickly they're able to overcome them, but more importantly, how they get at ease with moving forward. I mean, for me, what I would love to do is, that's what I'm here to do, is to share this with people, to go beyond the fact that you need an external insight, an external guidance. Everything you have is within you. And if you truly want to understand the greatest capacity you have, I'd love to share that. And that's something that we've all got available to us. And the ironic thing is how simple it is. To have a great night's sleep, some people can't do that. To understand how to communicate with your kids, some people can't do that. to understand how to create a business, to not give your life to someone else's ideas as you forgo your own. Some people don't know how to do that. I mean, the type of lifestyle, for me, my lifestyle, it wasn't in a book. It wasn't in a university course, what I'm doing now. It's about creating your life as you go and having the courage to be able to do so because of the relationship that you've developed. This is not about fixing things. This is about a deep soul essence understanding of ourselves and learning how to express that in a way that brings truth to you in your way, unapologetically.
I love it. Thanks for sharing, Jason. Appreciate having you on here today. And, you know, the thing I was going to say is this. A lot of times I see people that want to help people with particular conditions or business or whatever it happens to be. And, you know, I've even been there myself where you're really, really helping people. I speak to some of the guys at the top of the game around the world. And the challenge that everyone's having is they can take on that energy. You know, and there's even some people that charge a higher price because they say, I have to take on the energy and all these different things to help heal you. And, you know, what I've found since I've been experiencing what Jason does is that's not true at all. And it's interesting too, when we can actually be complete within our own energy field, we can actually take on more and do more and assist more people coming from our uniqueness, which I think is so important. And, you know, I just appreciate you guys who are here live. Thanks so much for everyone watching the replay. And just wanted to say this to you. If this has resonated with you today and you want to know more about the quantum movement, just get in touch with the person who sent this recording to you. Let them know you want to know more. You know, it could be in any different area of life. You could be going through some challenges, or you might just want to move ahead. So if that's resonating with you, get in touch with the person who sent this to you. We'd love to know more about what you're doing, how we can contribute to you. And again, just want to say a huge thank you to Mr. Jason Reynolds for being here live for another episode of Frank today. Thanks for being here, my man.
Thank you very much, Brock. Thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time and helping spread the word.
It's a pleasure. See you, everybody.
Thanks.